In this episode, we're pulling back the curtain on one of history's most unsettling secrets. If dark mysteries, hidden archives, and stories the world tried to erase are your thing, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. New deep dive episodes drop every single week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's step into the shadows and explore the truth behind the 1952 Mystery of Ashley, Kansas.
In the summer of 1952, Ashley, Kansas, was the kind of small Midwestern town people described as peaceful, predictable, and almost untouched by time. There were no big factories, no major highways, no reason for outsiders to remember its name. Life moved slowly there. Kids played in dusty streets, neighbors waved from porches, and the loudest thing you heard at night was the hum of cicadas drifting across the fields. If you asked anyone back then, they'd tell you Ashley was ordinary, comforting, even. But in August of that year, something happened that would not only erase the town from the map, but from the memory of almost everyone who didn't live there. And for the few who did remember, the story was so disturbing, so impossible to explain, that many refused to speak of it for the rest of their lives. The first sign of trouble came on the night of August 17th, 1952. Around 9 o'clock, several residents reported hearing a low rumble, deep and constant, like distant thunder. But the sky was clear, the air was calm, and the noise didn't move the way thunder does. It just hovered, vibrating faintly through the ground, as if something massive was shifting far below the earth. At first, no one panicked. It was Kansas. Strange noises happened, but the rumbling grew louder. Windows buzzed in their frames. Floorboards trembled. Dogs began barking up and down Main Street all at once, with the kind of unsettled tone that puts a knot in your stomach. Families stepped outside and looked around, confused. Nothing in the sky. No planes. No storm clouds. Just a strange sound growing steadily stronger. Then at 9:46 p.m., Ashley felt its first real tremor. It wasn't strong enough to knock over buildings, but it rattled dishes off shelves, made children cry, and sent people stumbling across to their living rooms. For a town that had never experienced earthquakes, it was frightening. The sheriff's office was flooded with calls. People wanted answers. But the sheriff, a man named Alan Mace, didn't have any. Still, he did what any small town sheriff would do. He got in his truck, turned on the siren, and began checking the outskirts of town. That's when he found it. Just beyond the far edge of Ashley, stretching almost 500 feet across, a wheat field, was a crack in the earth, unlike anything he'd ever seen. Not a trench, not a sinkhole, but a perfectly straight tear, blacker than night, and so deep that his flashlight beam didn't even reflect off the sides. It wasn't a normal break in the ground. It looked wrong. Too dark, too empty, as if the earth simply ended at the edge of the fissure. Residents gathered around him, whispering about the rumbling, the tremor, and now this impossible opening in the earth. Some thought it was an earthquake, others thought it was a mining accident or some kind of government project gone wrong, but none of those explanations fit. Ashley had no mines, no tunnels, nothing beneath it worth digging for. People stayed at the site for hours, nerves on edge, watching the strange fissure as if expecting it to move. And in a way, it did, because just after midnight, the first voice was heard. A man, standing near the fissure, suddenly gasped and stumbled backward. He said he heard a child crying from deep inside the darkness. Others leaned closer, listening, and sure enough, faintly, rising from the blackness, came the unmistakable sound of crying. But it wasn't just any child. According to the witnesses, it was a voice they recognized, a little girl who had died years earlier. More people arrived as word spread. Some said they heard their own children calling to them, children who had passed away from illness or accidents long before that night. Mothers swore they heard their babies. Husbands claimed to hear the voices of lost wives whispering their names from far beneath the earth. The crying and calling rose and fell like a strange, impossible echo, drifting up from a place no one could see. People backed away, terrified. The sheriff ordered everyone home. He feared someone might be compelled to jump in, believing they could rescue the voices they thought they heard. And so, Ashley slowly retreated back into the town, doors locked, curtains drawn, the rumbling of the earth still faintly trembling beneath their feet. By morning, the voices had stopped, the rumbling had ceased. Everything was still again, but that sense of calm wouldn't last. At 7:13 a.m. on August 18th, the Stanton County Sheriff's Office received a call from Ashley. A woman screamed into the phone, saying the ground was shaking violently, and the fissure had opened again. "We need help, please." The call cut out. Repeated attempts to reconnect failed. Radio communication from Ashley also went silent. Emergency teams set out immediately. The drive took 40 minutes. Every minute felt heavier than the last when they arrived at the location where Ashley had always stood. They stopped their vehicles and stared in disbelief. Ashley was gone. Not destroyed, not collapsed, not burned. Gone. There were no houses, no debris, no trees uprooted or scattered belongings, no bodies, not even foundations. Everything that had once been Ashley, every structure, every person, every trace of the town, had vanished. In its place was a massive, perfectly smooth oval of blackened earth. The soil had hardened into something like volcanic glass, dark and reflective. The outer edges of the town, where fields and trees had stood, were untouched, but the center, where the town itself should have been, looked as if it had been erased with a single, deliberate motion. Rescue teams walked the perimeter, searching for any sign of life. They found none. They dug into the soil. It bent their tools. They used thermal devices. No heat signatures. They tested the air. Nothing unusual. But there was one detail they all noticed. The scent. A faint, sweet chemical smell hung in the air, drifting slightly over the burned ground. It wasn't strong, but it was unmistakable. A scent similar to antifreeze, or ether, or some used in industrial cooling systems. It reminded many of the smell residents had reported the night before the disappearance. Within hours, federal authorities arrived. The area was sealed off. Surveyors, geologists, and military engineers examined the site. Their findings were classified. Families of the missing were relocated. Newspapers received vague statements. And slowly, quietly, Ashley, Kansas was removed from official records as though the town had never existed. Over the decades, theories emerged. Some scientists suggested a massive hidden sinkhole swallowed the town, though that didn't explain the hardened ground or the lack of debris. Others believed the area experienced a rare geological event, though nothing in Kansas resembled the aftermath. Some whispered about secret government experiments, echoing Cold War fears about weapons testing. And then there were those who believed something else. Something not geological or man-made, but something that stepped briefly into our world, took Ashley, and left nothing behind. Witnesses who had been near the fissure before the disappearance maintained that what they heard had been real. The voices, the whispers, the calling, and even now, some claim that if you stand near the restricted perimeter late at night, with your engine turned off and the prairie winds quiet, you might feel a faint tremor beneath your feet, a heartbeat, a pulse, a soft vibration like something moving far below the surface. And a few, only a few, swear they've heard something else, a distant voice rising through the still Kansas air, calling for help. Whatever happened to Ashley, Kansas, remains one of America's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. A town that didn't burn, didn't fall, didn't drown. It simply vanished, swallowed not by the earth we know, but so by my some munchnum. Everything else entirely, and for the people who remember it, one chilling question remains. If a town can disappear without a trace, what does that say about everything we think we understand about the world beneath us?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe for more weekly dark history stories. I appreciate you being here.